mantra was Kormasan, the turtle. So this is a beautiful analogy to remind us, oh wow, as we move around this world, if we want to develop the Muni consciousness, right, or a yogini or a yogi consciousness, we have to know how to use the senses in moderation, like a turtle, and how to withdraw the senses in and protect ourselves with the shell is the knowledge, this transcendental knowledge. So the shell can help us to keep the mind purified. The next mantra is one of my favorite mantras of the whole Gita. I remember learning this mantra almost 30 years ago. Krishna says, the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, though, this is a beautiful part, though the taste for sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. Krishna is so intelligent here. He tells us, he's telling Arjuna, once you have this body of senses, there is a pull from the senses. And each and every one of us, even from a young child, the inherent spiritual guide is with us. So each and every one of us knows subconsciously when we are doing something right and when we are doing something wrong, isn't it? We all know. It's like it's part of who we are. We are a spiritual being, so we already know what is right actions and what is wrong actions. It's the wisdom of the soul. So Krishna is telling us, you have this body and senses and mind. You're embodied within it. Now, the spiritual being is trying to restrict it. Even if no one went to church, no synagogue, no temple, inherent within us, we will come to a point of restricting some of the senses. And then when we start to do that, we will then start to figure out, oh, one of these senses are more powerful. How many of us saw one of the senses more powerful in the last 24 hours, right? Pulls us, we know, right? So sometimes all the senses are equally strong. And that's when someone, as a jiva, a atma, just loses their mental balance. So whenever you meet a human who is, quote unquote, we use this phrase, sober, or quote unquote, more calm, you should know that person has done a lot of work internally to restrain the senses. Now, Krishna says, that's a lot of work. I know it. I made the senses. The next part of it is one of my favorite part of this whole mantra. Krishna says, Param Drishta. He says, you can give up a lower desire if you can replace it with something superior to it. It makes so much sense, isn't it? It's straightforward. So the only way, Krishna has given us a hint here. He doesn't want us to give up one of the pull from one of the senses and then don't replace it with anything. We have to replace it. He's a very intelligent point. You have to replace whatever was satisfying the senses. If it's pulling you down, you have to replace it with something that will pull you up. Param Drishta. So when we come to yoga, we want the mind to be our best friend. So your mind will go crazy. Krishna is telling us right here, your mind will go crazy if you stop using one of your senses and you leave it blank. Because what will be in your mind? Oh, I want it, 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 I'm missing it, I'm missing it. And it's like a Ferris wheel constantly. The yogis are very intelligent. Okay, you have a taste for some delicious food, but you know every time you eat this food, you feel sick, but it tastes good. If one of the senses are pulling us, we know the sense that's pulling us. Let's replace the object that's pulling us with something more divine, something more pure. That's how the yogis purify their senses. The food they eat, they offer it to God first. The eyes get attracted to forms. The yogis spend a lot of time focusing on their deity worship. So when your eyes get attracted to your deity regularly, it is very easier for you when you leave your house and get on the train, the buses, and the billboards and the forms are pulling you. They won't have that much of it if you can reconnect to your form of your deity. You listen to transcendental song vibration, right? We're hearing the wisdom of the Gita. We're doing mantra meditation. When you leave the Sangha and you go outside, you will get bombarded by other song vibration. But they won't be able to pull you as before because you can replace it with something higher. So Krishna is answering Arjuna here. He's saying, these great rishis and munis, they can pull their senses in like a turtle. And then they know how to satisfy their senses in a spiritual way by replacing it with something superior. So whenever you find yourself controlling one of your senses, know that you have an amazing spiritual connection with God. That's how you're able to overcome it. It's a powerful realization. The second you think, oh yeah, I control my tongue, I control my form, the senses don't pull me. No, your teacher is not you alone. Yes, you have the endeavor, you desire, but I am constantly getting help. And when we recognize God's help, that keeps us in spiritual, humble consciousness. So let's meditate on these mantras. Stretch the legs out. Wiggle the ankles, the knees. Cross the legs back. Bring the palms on the knees. Touch the tip of the thumb, tip of the index fingers. And close the eyes softly. And as you close your eyes, recognizing you, the spiritual being, is witnessing that dark space behind the eyelids. You, the spiritual being, is residing within this amazing temple that has 9 gates, 7 in the head, 2 in the pelvis. You, the living being, witnessing how your senses are being pulled by the sense organs or by the sense objects. And as you bring your whole body into stillness, let's transfer your concentration of your mind to your breath. Witness the breath moving in and out of the nostrils. And sensitize the mind a bit more. See if you can identify the slight temperature change. The incoming breath is slightly cooler. The outgoing breath with your body's heat is slightly warmer. And as you identify that, recognize, wow, you are engineered this way. Cool air comes in, warm air goes out. That person who's witnessing the breath, also witnessing the experience of life through the senses and the external world. Become aware of it. Maybe it's the tongue, maybe it's the eyes, maybe it's the ears, the nose, maybe it's the skin. And recognize each of these, whichever sense organ you was overriding you, it's connected to a nerve to your brain. The brain connects to your muscles. The muscles connect to your skeletal system, allows the desire to go manifest the desire, walk here, go there, move this, do that, just to fulfill that desire from outside. And recognize the other sense object that you wrote next to it that you can replace. We can replace a lower mode, a lower sense object with a higher sense object, and contemplate the one that you wrote and envision if that higher frequency of the object is there, how peaceful your mind will become, how balanced your mind will become. How healthier your body will become, how your nervous system will calm down, how your circulatory system will calm down. Recognize every day you get up is another beautiful evolution of life. Every day the yogis get up, they try and refine the senses, find out which one of their senses pulling them, and then try and refine one of their senses daily. Try and replace it with a higher taste. So over the next 4 or 5 days, every day just choose one for each. I'll choose something for my eyes that raise me, replace the lower form. I'll choose something for my hearing to replace the lower form. I'll choose something for the tongue, replace the lower form. Something for the skin, replace the lower form. It's a living philosophy. And then our mind becomes more and more peaceful. I want you to take the next few seconds to scan your evolution, where you are at this moment, and recognize one of the senses that you have very good control over. And because you have such good control over it, it doesn't pull you. Your mind is much more peaceful. And recognize the gift to be able to control that senses, along with your endeavor, your desire to fulfill it, is you're getting help with divinity right now. Whenever you say no to it or in moderation, you should know you're connecting with your deity in the heart at that moment. The whole yoga is to teach us that we are not on this journey alone, we're with deity in the heart. And when you recognize that, naturally humility grows in us. And because humility is there with you, we are able to then forgive another living entity who one of the senses pull them down. I want you to remember a time in this life when you're able to empathize with another human brother or sister who was on their spiritual journey, and then one of the senses just so strong pulled them away. Rather than pushing them down, we want to empathize compassionately, encourage them to come back to their journey. The more and more we live like this, the more and more Krishna says that's how the Munis live, the great rishis live constantly. They set an example for society. Take a deep inhalation, exhale slowly, breath to normal. Bring the palms to the heart. Lower the brain, the skull, the nerves, the senses, and head towards your higher self, the Atma, towards your Ishta Devata, who's helping you on this journey to overcome the strong senses, to use them in moderation, and to be humble with them. Namaste. Lift the head, open the eyes. Hari Om Tat Sat.